All right. Good morning. Um, Hopefully, everybody can see a picture of the. Gotta get over here. This is not responding the way I'd hoped. Bear with me a minute. Of the old Ferry Hall gazebo or cupola. Is that what you're all seeing? Some indication?
Yes,
Not
Shawn,
or-
we can see it.
Okay, good deal. And why that's significant, I don't know if you've been over to our newer arboretum, located over across the street from Holbert Hall, is that back during the 1918 influenza epidemic, which had a bit of an effect on Pullman. We had the old Student Army Training Corps. Some of the students there got infected. There were 70, and then back then there were about 3,000 people in Pullman. 150 caught influenza and 3 of them died. But it's not the first time that Pullman's gone through an epidemic, and Ferry Hall, among some other WSU buildings, served as hospitals or temporary hospitals during that time. So if you're anything like me, you've probably accumulated a collection now of face masks, right? And there's just kind of an example. Got a linen one here. Got a couple here that are t-shirt materials with a couple of layers. And then on the right of the screen, you'll see a couple of N95 respirators. Of course, we're still saving N95 respirators for people that really need respiratory protection, and especially those people in the medical field. But you'll notice of these 2 N95 respirators, this one here on the left has an exhalation valve. So that is something we're not recommending because it doesn't provide as much filtration when, to protect others from your exhalations. So we're not recommending those, and generally not recommending that people use N95s presently anyway, unless they're specifically needed for respiratory protection. So at Environmental Health and Safety, we perform all the fit testing as we manage our respiratory protection program. And with our fit testing, we determine a fit factor for respirators, or we ensure that respirators provide the protection that they're assigned, right? So the N95 respirators have an assigned protection factor or a fit factor. They have to meet a fit factor of 10. We do this by generating a bunch of saltwater particles in the room. And then you can see a couple of tubes. They're coming out of our machine. One of those hooks up inside the mask and measures the concentration of saltwater particles inside the mask, while another is measuring the concentration of saltwater particles outside the mask, right? And so we want to see that there's a lot more particles outside the mask than inside. Well, researchers have done exactly the same thing looking at cloth masks, right? And we've seen that typical cloth masks offer a fit factor between 2 and 5, really depending upon the material or the fit of the cloth face mask, right? And a fit factor of 2 means that you're exposed to about half the concentration of particles outside the mask compared to inside the mask. And a fit factor of 5 means you're exposed to 1/5. Mask with a nose piece, something that you can actually mold around the top of your nose, typically afford a better fit than those without. The material makes a difference too. Cotton t-shirts are better than cotton pillowcase type material or linen. which is better than flannel, which is better than silk. More layers is better than less layers, or just one layer, right? And that's kind of intuitive. If you're pulling air through more layers, it's doing a better job of filtering out outside air. And a higher thread count, so if you're thinking a kind of more dense material, is better than a lower thread count as far as protecting the mask wearer, right? But where we all know that masks really shine is in providing source control, right? So cloth masks typically perform best when they function as source control, better than protecting the user, right? And some studies suggest a 96% reduction in viral emissions from somebody that might be carrying the virus unaware, wearing a mask. So for conservatism, just consider an 80% reduction in the amount of viral emissions, which is reducing viral emissions by a factor of 5. So then if we combine that with a fit factor between 2 and 5, cloth face masks, if worn by everyone, could reduce everybody's viral exposure by a factor of 10 to 25. And this has really become significant when we consider reducing the likelihood of exposure, because we're trying to reduce somebody's exposure to an infectious dose, all right? Because it's not like you get exposed to just one virus and you become infected. You have to be exposed to a number of virus, and they haven't totally nailed that down yet, but I've heard estimates ranging from 200 virus to 1,000. And then we need to understand that different activities also affect the potential for our emitting viruses, our becoming a source of virus. So if you're just sitting down, breathing, your potential to emit virus is really pretty low. When we talk, we increase the likelihood that we're going to emit some virus. This is one of my favorites. Unmodulated vocalization, which is when we raise our voice, or singing. Everybody's heard about the famous choir exposure. That increases the likelihood that we're going to emit more particles, more respiratory particles containing virus. And then coughing or sneezing is more still, right? And then this also is associated with our activity level. So a resting state, you're going to emit less virus compared to light physical activity on up to, the most being some heavy physical activity where you're really respiring hard. So source control protects other people. Your fit factor protects you, and both contribute towards reducing potential exposure for everybody. So if we can collectively, by everyone wearing masks, reduce the likelihood that people are emitting virus or exposed to virus, we significantly reduce the risk that people are going to get sick. And the goal being, of course, that we keep that R naught value, which is an epidemiological term, less than 1, meaning that for everyone that's infected, they infect less than 1 person, and eventually we get the spread of the virus under control. So cloth face mask care, kind of to the end of our slides here, but this is what the presentation is about. When you put on your face covering, use the strings or the loops. Don't touch the mask part, just so you're not transferring any contaminants that might be on your hand to the mask, especially the inside of the mask, right? Because that's what's going to go against your face. Wash or sanitize your hands after you've touched your face covering, and that's just because it's acting as a filter, right? And so on that face covering, there's more likelihood that you've contaminated it, or that you might have inhaled some contamination onto the surface. Wash your face covering after each use, so that's ideally once a day. When you wash your face covering, use detergent and hot water. Dry it on the high heat setting. It's all an effort to kill any virus that might be on that face mask, or consider air drying it in direct sunlight. Now it's exposed to UV, which they've demonstrated kills the virus. And then throw away your face mask if it's damaged or stretched out, or if it no longer covers your nose and mouth. So just in summary, back to our Ferry Hall cupola. The mask material matters. The mask fit matters. Masks protect the wearer and they protect others. Your activity matters with breathing, emitting less virus than talking or yelling, coughing or sneezing. Wash your hands and wash your mask. And that concludes our discussion on cloth facial covering care.